Hello everyone, today we shall study Macbeth, Act 1, Scene 3. So the stage direction suggests thunder, enter the three witches. So there is lesser stage direction from the previous one, but by this time we are quite accustomed with the witches. We have spoken about them. So this scene begins with the normal daily life routines of the witches, and you see in the first scene we were faced with the question, when shall we three meet again, and they meet again. So where has thou been, sister? So this scene, unlike the first scene, opens with the question of where. So where has thou been, sister? Killing swine. So this is a common pastime for the witches perhaps. Sister, where thou? A sailor's wife had chestnuts in her lap and mounced and mounced and mounced. So why is there a sudden reference to the sailor and his wife? Because you see, I have two interpretations. You can take any of them. The first interpretation would be that since the Elizabethan age, when Shakespeare wrote this play, since the Elizabethan age was an age of expansion, so there is a high chance that the sailors were a very commonplace figures, and therefore Shakespeare uses them. This is number one. But number two is even more significant to me because the sailor symbolically represents Macbeth. As the text proceeds, you see in his sonnets, Shakespeare has often referred to literature as the pole star of life, and life as a journey, as a bark, as a small boat embarking to the sea. So, if we take the sailor to be Macbeth, then we can see a lot of prolepsis over here, a lot of forecasting of what is going to happen to Macbeth later in the text. But we will come to that later, right? As we proceed with this, with the text, we will come to that definitely. So, a sailor's wife had chestnuts in her lap. So, this sailor's wife was eating some chestnuts from her lap and mounced and mounced and mounced. Now, you see, this line is very significant because it talks about how Shakespeare was looking at the dialogues as well. You see, Aristotle in his Poetics talks about 6 elements of a drama: plot, thought, action, music, spectacle, diction. Now, when Aristotle did something very interesting, that is, he always favored plot, thought, and action over music, spectacle, and diction. But plot, thought, and action are the literary counterparts. We can read the plot, we can understand the thought, we can analyze the action. But when we go to see the play, then only can we really realize the music, spectacle, and diction. I'll come to this later on, especially in that section where Macbeth will murder Duncan and then will descend from the stairs, and Lady Macbeth would say, "My husband." There I'll talk about this in much more detail. But for now, try to understand that in a play, plot, thought, and action are equally important alongside with music, spectacle, and diction. Now, classically, traditionally, what has happened is that we have always given more weightage on plot, thought, and action, and lesser weightage on music, spectacle, and diction. Those of you who are actively a part of theatre, who participate in theatre, you know that music, spectacle, and diction play an equally important part, if not a more important part, in the staging of the play. But for the students who are reading the text of the play, plot, thought, and action, these 3 things take precedence over the other 3 counterparts. But look, in this line, and mounced and mounced and mounced, Shakespeare deliberately plays upon a rhetorical figure called Polysyndeton. What is Polysyndeton? Polysyndeton is simply the repetition of the same consonant in one line. Now you'll see that and we have the repetition of the consonant and. Now what this does over here is that this kind of shows the monotony of the witch's the monotony that the witch feels at the sailor's wife eating the nuts and not sharing any with her. Now look, give me, quoth I. So I said, give some to me. Quoth means said. Ruined the witch, the rump-fed Runnion cries. So get out from here, witch. And look, when she says that the rump-fed Runnion is a slang. Rump-fed means somebody's bottom. And rump-fed, this expression suggests that she's pregnant. Alright. And look, what happens over here is very significant, you see, because she is pregnant and therefore she is eating chestnuts, and this witch goes to her and asks for some chestnuts and she just hurls her away. And now look what the witches shall do to take their revenge. So then she says, her husband's to Aleppo gone, master of the tiger. So Aleppo was actually a seaport during that time, which was famous for its business. Master of the tiger. Tiger was a very common name for ships during that period. But in a sea I'll thither sail, and like a rat without a tail, I'll do, and I'll do. So look, but in a sea while thither sail. So usually when we think about witches and wizards, in the folk tales and even in Harry Potter, we think of them flying on a broom, maybe a Nimbus 2000. But over here, the witch says that I'll fly over there in a sieve. And look, she says, and like a rat without a tail. Why a rat without a tail? Because you see, quite like Professor McGonagall, these witches could transform, shapeshift. But there was a catch. What is that? They can only shift those parts of their body which they possess. Now usually a human being does not possess a tail. So there's no way that a human being can transform a tail. So like a rat without a tail. Now you see, during the Elizabethan age, plagues were very common. During the early eras, plagues were very, very common, and often these plagues were caused by rats and such rodents and other beings. So rats were not seen in a very good light. For instance, a few days ago I was reading a book. It was a book, I don't remember the name, but it was talking about the history of the black cat, how the black cat has been ostracized in civilization. So similarly, if you could find some book on the history of rats and plague, I don't know if such a book exists, but it should, it should be a very interesting historical document, because the bubonic plague was actually caused by rats. Now, plagues were very common during this time, and therefore rats were not seen in a very favorable light. Now, what happens is that a rat without a tail was often considered to be a witch. This much is a fact of the Elizabethan age. So, rat without a tail, I'll do, and I'll do. Now, why the repetition of I'll do? I think that the first I'll do is I'll go there. The second I'll do is I'll meet that person. And the third I'll do is I'll ruin him. Now the second witch says, I'll give thee a wind. So you see, they can control the winds. And during the Elizabethan age, all ships were dependent on wind to set sail, to set course. Thou art kind, and I another. and my eyes and I myself have all the other, and the very ports they blew, and all the quarters that they know in the shipman's card. So the sailors had a kind of map, and the shipman's card was almost like a map which showed that which wind blows from which direction to which area. So it was like a guideline for them to follow these routes so that they could easily go to those ports. So that's the shipman's card. It's almost like a Google map for of today. I'll drain him dry as hay, sleep shall neither night nor day. Hang upon his penthouse lid, he shall live a man forbid. Now, as I was saying that uh, if we take the sailor to be Macbeth, then this text starts becoming interesting. Why should we take him to be Macbeth? You see, when Macbeth will murder Duncan, he will do so because he will interpret the witch's prophecy as a prophecy for him becoming king via murdering Duncan. Now he'll say, Macbeth has murdered sleep, Macbeth shall sleep no more. And look at this line, sleep shall neither night nor day. Hang upon his penthouse lid. Now if the body is the penthouse, then your eyelids are your penthouse lid. He shall live a man forbid. Now, if you have any idea about Macbeth, then I do not need to tell you that this is Macbeth that we are talking about over here. Where is 7 nights 9 times 9 shall he dwindle, pick and pine. Though his bark cannot be lost, yet it shall be tempest tossed. Now 7, 9, these are very occult numbers. You see 7 seas, 7 land masses, 7 steps round the fire. And 9 is a very mysterious number. It has often been considered as an occult number as well. Mathematically also 9 is very significant because from 1 to 9, whatever you add with 9, you get 9. You get that number. For instance, 9 plus 1, 10. 1 plus 0, 1. Say 9 plus 6, 15. 5 plus 1, 6. And whatever you multiply with 9 from 1 to 9, you get 9 only. For instance, 9 times 9, 81. 8 plus 1, 9. So it has been numerologically considered to be a very interesting number. So 7 nights 9 times 9. Shall he dwindle, pick and pine, though his bark means his soul, cannot be lost, yet it shall be tempest tossed. Now bark, here we see that on the ground level, these witches are talking about the sailor and his ship. But on the symbolical level, Shakespeare is asking us to read in between the lines and find out how they are trying to manipulate, how they are trying to decide the future of Macbeth. Alright. Now look, if we reread this section once again, thinking that the sailor is Macbeth, then Macbeth is a sailor in the sea of life. Sea has often been used as a metaphor for life. So what happens is that this lady, his wife, who is Lady Macbeth over here, she is impregnated with the dream of becoming the queen. But ironically, Lady Macbeth does not have children while this sailor's wife is pregnant. So what happens is that you'll realize soon enough that when Macbeth and Lady Macbeth talk later in this act only, Macbeth will say that bring forth men children only. And you'll realize that Macbeth shall cease to be the husband Macbeth and shall become the unborn murderous child of Lady Macbeth. So there the connection becomes even more problematic. And what happens is that since we are dwelling too much on the psychological and symbolical ramifications of this scene, so look, suddenly the witches bring us back to the reality. So Look what I have. Show me, show me. Here I have a pilot's thumb. Racked as homeward he did come. So they have got a pilot's thumb from a shipwreck while they were coming home. And we have a stage direction, drum within. A drum, Macbeth doth come. So once again we have the reference to Macbeth with a drum. The drum is an announcement actually of Macbeth coming. Now imagine this book. Imagine this book is the stage. Alright. Now what happens is that in the modern stages, the wings are on this side and on this side, right? On the two sides. But during the Elizabethan England, if the audience is on that side, the wing was somewhere over here. One door, second door. So imagine if my middle finger is the first door, then my ring finger is the second door. And a character took some time to come from over here to here. Alright. So what happened was that this time span was given to the character, and these dialogues were actually preparing the audience for the characters who are coming, and the audience was being made aware of the characters who are about to come. And look, now they cast a charm. The weird sisters, hand in hand, posters of the sea and land, thus do go about. Thrice to thine, thrice to mine, and thrice again to make up nine. Peace, the charms won't die. So they prepare a cryptic ceremony, a cryptic ritual to receive Macbeth, who is perhaps one of their kinsmen, as we shall establish very soon. So look, thrice to thine, thrice to mine, and thrice again to make up nine. So you see 3, 3, 3, how they are using